And so the people of Israel have been freed from slavery. But the journey to freedom and to land and to place was long and arduous. 40 years through the wilderness. Moses is their prophetic leader. But the day and the moment comes where Moses is the leader no more. Joshua will take them into the promised land. And in the last step, the last moment, the final part of the trip into the promised land is across the Jordan River. And Joshua, through the inspiration of God, has decided to memorialize all that God has done in the past before they move on into the future. And that story of how they'll memorialize it, how they'll remember, how they'll retell the story of what God has done is found in Joshua chapter 4. And we're going to read 7 verses today, Joshua chapter 4, verses 1 through 7. I invite you to stand with me, if you would, as we honor the reading of the word of the Lord today. Joshua chapter 4, starting with verse 1. When the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, "Choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right where the priests are standing, and carry them over with you and put them down to the place where you stay tonight." So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe. And he said to them, "Go over before the ark of the Lord your God to the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. In the future, when your children ask you, 'What do these stones mean?' tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. And while we've not crossed any rivers today, it's still a practice that I like to start the year off by remembering this story and placing 12 stones to remember what God has done amongst us in the year past. Because it is with God's help that we continue and we move forward as a church. And so I've got 12 stories, at least, to tell you today about what God did amongst us at Crossroads in the last year. And I've got stones off to my side that I'll memorialize each and every one. So the first one I want to talk about is meeting our financial goals. You may have noticed at the end of the year that you got some emails. Everyone loves emails at the end of the year, right? Well, we started out in the month of December, early on, $170,000 short of our annual goal. And I want to tell you today that we met and made and exceeded our annual goal for giving. So thank you so much, Crossroads, for your faithful giving. Yeah. And I also want to tell you, I know that talking about money isn't always the most exciting thing in the world. And I think that we get in the habit of thinking that church is a free place to go. And that is certainly the case, that we want it to be where anyone can come at any time. But if you break down our expenses in a year, divide it by 52, and then divide it by the average of people who show up on a weekend here, it is about $40 to $50 a person to pull off church for a year. And that includes the costs for children who aren't ponying up $40 to $50 a person when they come to church. And so your willingness to give above and beyond your part every single year helps us tell the gospel to our children, our teens, help us reach out to our community and do good and to share the good news with those around us. So thank you so much for the way that you give. The second thing I want to celebrate this year is that our vision statement of heaven on earth is being integrated into our congregation. And we talk about this to some degree with some regularity in staff meeting and everything. Like when Austin and I talk about how we're going to structure Sunday mornings, we talk about wanting to have people experience heaven pour out into the sanctuary as we sing with each other. When we talk about strategy outside of the church, reaching out to our community, we want people who are far from God to have glimpses and moments and experiences where they see heaven break into earth, even if just for a moment. And the reason that we talk about this as our vision is baked right into the way that Jesus teaches us to pray. And so we've not made this up. We've actually determined as a church that we want to answer Jesus' prayer. You may recall that in Matthew chapter 6, he teaches his disciples how to pray. And this is what he says. This then is how you should pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so this is our longing at Crossroads, is to pray that prayer and then embody that prayer. So we try to do things that are beyond just normal. My friend Philip, who I'll talk about a little bit later visiting, Philip Zimmerman told me one time when we were talking about this kingdom vision, this idea of heaven coming to earth. He said to me, every once in a while, you need to be involved in doing something where if God does not show up, it could all fall apart. And I thought that's a great point. What's the point of being the people of God if everything we do all the time is within our own strength? Every once in a while, we need to be open to God speaking and leading and moving us individually and as people into something that's risky, that shows, that proves that we have faith in a God who's bigger than the circumstances and patterns of this world. That if God speaks and calls us into something risky and different and strange and unusual, that we believe that God will show up. And it'll take a move of God for it to work out. I'm challenged by those words and want to be a part of a church who really does live with that sort of faith. The third thing I want to celebrate this year is that we had a group of teenagers go to Nazarene Youth Conference. I believe our group was 30 strong, is that right? 24, 25, just short of 30. So in the mid-20s of people we sent to Tampa this year, this summer. And I brought a video along with me as I placed a stone for you to check out what they did when they went to this conference this summer. And attending worship services and concerts and serving the community there has been a catalyst for many of our teens. We'll talk about the teens a little bit more later. But a lot of what's happened since then has emerged out of that time where they went and saw a bigger expression of the kingdom of God than they could just see in their normal hometown. Many of them have testified and shared about a new sense of bravery and willingness to be holy and authentically Christian in their schools, in their lives, everywhere they go. And such exciting testimonies has come out of that time. And many of you helped by participating in fundraisers or cutting checks or helping students be able to afford to go. So thank you for being a part of that. It's made a huge difference in our teens' lives. Number 4 that I want to talk about is a serve day that we had in the fall. We partnered with multiple area organizations, including Revelry Grounds, which is a place trying to help folks who have been in the military and are now switching to civilian life to be able to make that transition and do so healthily. Be More Caring is an organization we partner with a lot with that helps with people who are less fortunate or homeless in the Baltimore area. Head Start is locally found right around the corner. There are 5, I think, in all of Howard County, but there's only 1 in Ellicott City, and it's actually less than a mile from this building. And Head Start is it's a federal government program for preschool for folks that cannot afford preschool on their own. And so it's often very heavily underfunded because that's how government programs often go. And so they're serving the most vulnerable children in our area and often doing so on a very shoestring budget. And so we helped them. I'll tell a little story about that later. And then Foster the Family is partnering with families who have decided to enter into fostering children and bringing them into their home and supporting the needs of those families. And then we also had a group who cleaned out the church garage here. You may recall the stories about how that group faced up against snakes this large. I think they were coiled, but they looked mean and nasty, that's for sure. But we did that in order to have space so that we can collect furniture in order to house people who are settled into this area as refugees. And so we got a video to show what happened that day as well as I placed the 4th rock. Check out this video of what went on that day. Our 5th stone this year is a celebration of a milestone that we hit. In September, we cooked and served our 40,000th meal since the pandemic in 2020 to serve the homeless people in our kitchen. 40,000 meals in just about 3 years, given away for free through participation with Be More Caring to people who are homeless in the city. And I think that's an incredible milestone that I was really excited about. So let's go ahead and move a stone over for that as well. The 6th stone that I want to talk about is our quarterly reset nights that we have had at the church. Now, on an average reset night, we have about 100 to 120 people come, which is about a 6th, a 7th, and 8th, depending on how you count, of people who come to church here. Now, I know coming back to church is not in vogue anymore on Sunday nights, but reset night is an incredible night, and it's only once a quarter. If you've not come to one of those before, you really should come and check it out sometime. It's an incredible night, really focused on community. We eat a meal together, and then we sing for a long time, which is way better than listening to the pastor preach. I want to point out. Yeah, exactly. And then we have folks, usually from our congregation, not always, share a story or a testimony or what God has done in their life for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so. And then we pray together. And prayer is a value of what we do and who we are at Crossroads. It's central to what we're called to be as a Christian people. And so I've got another quick video to show just about a minute or so of what one of those nights looks like as I place the 6th stone. Those are incredibly cool nights. If you ever wanted to give it a try and a risk, check it out. Just an incredible way to get to know someone in a low-pressure environment, and then also spend time praising God, and then spending time praying with one another. I highly, highly recommend checking those nights out. Number 7 is Crossroads Youth. Now, I talked about NYC specifically earlier, and I'm going to show you another video here that's just short of 2 minutes long, but this has got a series of statistics in it of what's happened as well. Baptisms among our teens this year, times they've gotten together, times they've served. Here's a picture of just a couple weeks ago at their Christmas party. You'll see that the whole stage is filled with teenagers and leaders. We regularly have nights of over 90 people in here on Wednesday nights for youth group. God is doing incredible things through our youth group. And here, check out this video, a year-end video of what's gone on amongst them this year. So keep praying for them. Pray for that ministry, because it's an important time in life, and it's really cool to see what God is doing in the age of our teenagers. Number 8 that I want to celebrate is Crossroads Kids. I've got some pictures that I'm going to show you in just a second. We don't have a video for Crossroads Kids, but I want to give you some numbers that I thought were really exciting about what's happening in that ministry. This year, we added 16 new volunteers to children's ministry. Thank you so much to those of you who serve in kids ministry. We started a children's ministry council to help Pastor Gretchen with planning and strategizing and working with her, so she's not the only one coming up with ideas. That's going great. We had 8 kids baptized to say yes to Jesus this year. We are now up to 20 kids at our 11 o'clock service, which is a big deal. Let me tell you why. When we started meeting again for the pandemic, and the numbers were 100 in this room, we were meeting at 9. And so as church started getting going again, everyone started coming to 9 o'clock, because that's the only service we had. And then once we started filling up 9 o'clock, we added 11 again. And most people with kids have kids who wake them up at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m., right? See, my kids are now teenagers, so we wake them up. This is how life has changed. When they're kids, they wake you up. And so often you're kind of already up, right? And so it was slow going in the first year or two at the 11 o'clock service. Sometimes kids from the 11 o'clock service would come at 9 o'clock, and they'd see how many kids were there, and they'd say to their parents, well, why don't we go to the 9 o'clock service? That's where all the energy is. That's where all the kids are, right? And so now we're getting to the point that we're averaging 20 at 11, which is incredible growth, something very exciting that's happening to see that our 11 o'clock service is starting to move and to grow, and good things are happening there. And then the small groups in our kids ministry, for those of you who don't know how it's structured, they meet in large group and then they go out into grade age appropriate places for the second half of the service. And those small groups have started to get together and do events with each other outside of church, which is a really, really new thing for us as Crossroads. Not long ago, pre-pandemic, we focused everything on Sunday morning and would rarely do kids events outside, but our volunteers are leading the way in this. And so I've got just a few pictures of some of the things that happens in kids ministry for you to check out. My favorite picture is definitely Robbie Schroeder with the star in his face right there. That is definitely my favorite kids picture that I saw this year. So we got one more slide of some pictures for you to check out as well. And you see this is one of our small group events to the left of people being off campus. And to the right, that's Vacation Bible School this year, where, again, we had hundreds of kids and 100+ volunteers in order to pull that off in July. God is doing incredible things through our kids ministry as well. I should probably move the stone for that, I think. I don't think I did that. See, I lose track. I get so excited about telling the stories, right? Number 9 is something we tried this summer that went really, really well, and that was that Crossroads Women started holding testimony nights. And we had 4 different Wednesday nights where, I think it was a Wednesday night, it might have been a different night of the week, where 4 different women told the story of God's faithfulness in their life. And they were well attended and so exciting to hear people sharing the story of God's presence and help through illness and grief and struggle and triumph. God is good. And we have people who are willing to tell those stories, to share their testimony of what God has done and is doing in their life. And it's so great to see God at work in individuals' lives and seeing the church gather around them to celebrate as well what God is doing. So that is our 9th stone. Our 10th is the growth of community groups. And the reason I think this is so great is because we keep hearing and learning that there is an epidemic of loneliness in our world. Not just America, but especially in the West. People are identifying, talking about, and struggling with loneliness. And so here are just some examples of community groups that we have going on at our church, thinking about lots of different issues, but in particular, trying to create multiple ways in which people can connect and to belong and to fight against the very real struggle that we have in our world of loneliness. And so here's just an example. This is not exhaustive, but we have Crossroads Moms that meets every other Monday. We have Sunday school classes that meet Sundays in the building. We have small groups that meet in the church and at homes throughout the year. Iron Sharpens Iron is a men's group that meets on Wednesday mornings. We have a sewing ministry that meets a couple of times a month, and they sew dresses together for little girls, because when little girls in some of the places where these dresses are sent are wearing new clothes, human trafficking goes down because the girls look loved and they will be missed. And so we try to put really nice dresses on girls in third world countries to fight trafficking. We have young adult ministries groups, 2 different groups happening now. We have the youth group. We have Elevate Basketball, which is in full swing right now in the church. In fact, this room looked very different 24 hours ago. Little tiny kids bouncing balls all over the place. We have simple music nights where people of all different level of talents can get together and play music together. We have our 55+ group. We have a Celebrate Recovery ministry where people come and they talk about their hurts, habits, and hang-ups and see God deliver victory over those things in their lives. We have our food service ministry where people get together during the week and serve and cook meals to hand out to the community. These are just some of the groups of places where you can plug in and connect with other people. And it's always exciting to see what God is doing in building groups amongst us, especially in a world where people feel lonely. And having purpose and connection in the church can be a great way to fight that. And I'm thrilled that Crossroads is that kind of place. The 11th stone that we're going to place is visits from our German friends and partners this year. Anna-Mona Boot, who's on the right, she came in the early spring, and then Philip Zimmerman came in the late fall this year. And they came and talked about what God is doing in Germany and about how they're trying to rethink church in a very post-Christian culture. And they told a lot of stories about what God is doing there. But one of the things that we've been hearing as leadership group here is how to build communities on mission amongst us. And so we have started partnering with some of those groups that we talked about early on Serve Day, trying to build communities on mission through here. Communities on Mission is basically combining community and mission together to create a group that 1 week will serve and 1 week will get together to pray and study. Then the next week back to serve, and then the next week back to pray and study. And so Philip, you may remember when he preached, said that doing this kind of thing is a beautiful mess. You remember him saying that? It's a beautiful mess to try to integrate mission and discipleship together. It's not always easy, it's not always clean, it takes some time getting to know your community and partnering with your community, but that it's beautiful when it comes together because you begin to reach and to meet people that you wouldn't if you just came to church on Sunday. Going out and being present in places allows you to evangelize, to share God's good word, to bring heaven on earth wherever you are. Now, I want to tell you a story from just the last couple weeks about our church's effort of trying this community on mission work. We had our angel or giving trees at Christmas. You remember that? There were tags on it, and you could come through and you could pick something out, and they were designed to go to our places that we're trying to create communities on mission with. One of them was the Head Start building right around the corner from here. And we asked the Head Start building, what are some things that they need in order to do what they do at a basic level to serve the kids of our neighborhood? And so they gave us a list of things. And when we delivered them on December 21st, they could not believe that we, as Crossroads, had gotten them every single thing that they asked for. Their comment back to us was that they were so happy to be asked and they thought that they might get a couple things. But Marjorie Bailey went, and this is what she told me she was told. I thought we were going to get a few gifts, but we get Macy's instead. And the teachers, the leaders, the administrators were crying. They were in tears because of the way that you at Crossroads blessed them. They were overwhelmed with the generosity of this church, caring about them. And I'm so thankful to be a part of that sort of community. So again, thank you for giving. Thank you for giving. And we're going to celebrate and we're going to be excited about what more doors God opens this year as we try to find ways to be intentional about mission in our community without leaving discipleship behind. Finding ways that we can grow as individuals while we're also serving, and seeing the inextricable link between service and growth, and how we don't have to be one or the other, but really we can be both at the same time. So that was number 11. And then number 12 as well is an outgrowth of that as well that we've started laying foundation for, that I want to talk just a little bit more about today before we close out. We have been working in trying to connect with the city of Baltimore. And there are reasons that we have done this. I'll get to that in just one second. But some of the things that we've done is we've had a block party right outside of, this is Holland's Market in the west side of the city. And we've been working in that neighborhood. We've had a you want to show me the next picture? There we go. Fall block party. We've done caroling and cookies in the neighborhood. We've done Friendsgiving. And we keep making connections and getting to know people and talking with people and getting ingrained in this community in West Baltimore. Interestingly enough, out of the trust that we've built, there's a lady there who texted us a week ago that said that she had been in conversation with one of the Plank brothers who run Under Armour. And they're selling some buildings and looking for people to sell to who want to invest in the community, and that Under Armour's not trying to make bank, but they're trying to sell decent places to people who want to build in the community. And our connections is helping us make connections all the way to hearing from Plank brothers who run Under Armour. So I've got just a quick video before I talk a little bit more about why West Baltimore, of some of these things that have happened in that community over the last year. Check this out. Now, if you've been around Crossroads for a long time, you know that in the 2010s into the 2020s, we had a history at Crossroads of church planting. You may have heard us talk about that a lot. I think we planted 5 churches in about 15 years. Now, I don't think that I want to do a church plant in Baltimore. Instead, I want to think a little bit more like satellite campus, if you will. That Crossroads extends itself, but without constantly starting and breaking, which creates some sort of competition or multiple choices or any of this kind of stuff. We want to be Crossroads, but we want to be Crossroads in more than just this location, if you will. To some degree, this is a very 2020s model if you read into this or look into it. But I think it'd be good for us to be involved in lots of places, and I think we have the ability, the capacity to do so. And so you may be wondering to yourself, well, why Baltimore? Why there? Well, I'll tell you why. First of all, let me show you a picture of the Church of the Nazarene in Baltimore. All of those yellow crosses are churches of the Nazarene, and you'll see that there are a few on the outskirts of Baltimore, but nothing actually in the city of Baltimore. So our denomination is not in the city of Baltimore at all, the largest population base in Maryland, and we've got no churches there whatsoever. But here's the thing that you may or may not know about Crossroads history is that once upon a time, we were Baltimore First Church of the Nazarene. And our legal name, we still get mail in the mail from like our legal places, the banks and such, written to Baltimore First, because that is still our most legal name with the state of Maryland. And so here's a little bit of a picture of our history at Crossroads. All the way to the right is the church building that we built in the 1920s, which is still in place and called Doswell Cathedral Church Circles, is where our first church building was in West Baltimore. Then in the 1950s, we moved down 40 into the Edmondson area. And if you can see in red lettering over there, Central Church of Christ, that's currently the church that's in our building today. If you were to ever drive into Baltimore down 40 and you get into Edmondson, there's a little library on the corner, and then there's a Edmondson Shopping Center. There's a giant church there, a huge building, and that was our building up until the 1970s when we purchased this piece of land that we're on today. And so basically, there had been some like tent locations and stuff like that in the 1910s, but these are the 3 major building projects that our church has undergone in the last 100 years. And so as you can see, we have continued to move further and further west over the last 100 years. And not one of us in this room, not one of us on our church board had anything whatsoever to do with this moving west. We have received this heritage, and we are here today because of decisions people have made in the past for good reasons. And God has blessed those decisions, absolutely no doubt about it. However, it is worth us asking if we can be a part of going back into the city and being a missionary presence, a presence of goodness for a city that we have been a part of leaving in our story, in our past. I've got a couple of bigger pictures of the churches as well. These are the 3 churches, what they looked like when they were built in our history. The first one in 1921, the second one in 1953, and then this one in 1974. Interestingly enough, all 3 of them have undergone renovations since these original pictures. All of them look a little different today than they did in this particular picture. But I want to show you one last map just to show the trajectory in history. You'll see, again, this is the original picture. There is no Church of the Nazarene in Baltimore, and those red stars are the locations of where we have moved across time. And so what we're trying to imagine and to pray and to hope for in this last year that we've started laying the bricks for in the last year is how we can be a presence back in Baltimore without necessarily planting a church, without necessarily starting something completely new. And so Randy Clay, who's a member of our church, was like this close to going and doing missionary work in South Korea. He had a job lined up, he had a place to go, and God told him that he was made to be an evangelist, and why couldn't he be a missionary evangelist in the city that he was from. Instead of going halfway across the world, why couldn't he just do it here in a city that he knew needed it? And so in the last year, we spent a lot of time in Baltimore, a lot of time in prayer walks, prayer gatherings, getting to know people, getting connected, and hoping that God will open doors for us to put our own missionary in the city of Baltimore. And through Crossroads, not starting some new church, but starting an extension of Crossroads, doing evangelism, justice, community development, and following and tracing our heritage back to where it began, and trying to do something for the sake of the gospel in the community where we began, where our heritage started. And so that's what we're hoping to do this year. That's what we're planning and strategizing this year. Not starting a new church, not breaking something off, but as Crossroads, doing something in the city of Baltimore to see what might happen if we go in with a missionary vision and a vision to care for and to love the community and the city, and to see what God might do for us, strategizing for that presence. So I invite you to pray for that this year. Pray for Randy as he's done a lot to set his life aside and really focus on even moving into the community there and helping us lead something new in the west side of Baltimore. So those are the 12 things that I'm excited about. I could go on forever. And the good news is the Ravens played yesterday, so you've got time. So I could go on, but I won't. 12 things is enough for now, but God has been faithful and good and present and helpful in what we've done. And I'm so excited about the next steps of what God is leading us into. And I can't wait to do this again a year from now and to talk about what an exciting 2024 we've had, because God is present and real and near and is creative and helps us be creative. And I can't wait to see what's next at Crossroads. Thank you for the way you've served, the way you've participated, the way you've given to help make this happen. God is alive and at work. And how exciting is it to be a part of a place like Crossroads? Thank you all so much.